Hi, my name is Ink of April, and this is a brand new channel, which is going to be going through news, tutorials, plugins, focusing on practical ideas of tools, mainly for electronic music. Now, let me tell you why Reaper is the best DAW. I'm kidding. For the first video I make, I want to focus on what I think is pretty important right now for a lot of aspiring producers. And that's just finding sound advice. Consider this video for new or even some experienced producers as a roadmap for YouTube content. The issue? Well, a lot of channels that YouTube decides to shove down our throats are honestly pretty bad. Today, we'll be going over some of the red flags from these channels and things you should just honestly look out for. A lot of these channels don't really have your best interest at heart. They're looking either to make money or just produce lackluster content. First up, the use of specific words should be a red flag. Stuff like vibe, mojo, analog warmth, creamy. People that know what they're doing typically don't say this stuff, don't talk about this stuff because it's generally just beyond them. The old saying still applies nowadays. If it sounds good, it is actually good. The obsession with analog gear is finally wearing out, thank fucking God. But we still see people looking for that analog sound when digital plugins do the same and even more nowadays. What you're hearing is distortion, saturation at different levels. Boomers all around the world will still tell you that there's a difference and
let me help you, this is the gear that you need.
And there is a difference, but you can achieve that same sound in your DAW with stock plugins, just saturation, distortion, maybe crosstalk. The question should be, why do you want that sound? Which brings me to the next topic, analog emulations. These plugins are made for a couple reasons only, and that's vintage appeal and that it's familiar. If you are new or you make electronic music in any fashion at all, you should take a big step away from these plugins, as these companies only really see you as an easy target. Vintage appeal should not work on you. This imperfect sound that these plugins are advertising can easily be achieved with stock plugins. These plugins should and do, however, appeal to people who have had the hardware version and honestly just want to free up living room space with a near identical copy. They want the plugin version because they are used to the workflow and they don't have to hire a technician to service the gear when it craps out on them. And I know what you're thinking, why should I believe you as opposed to these other creators who are pushing these products? Well, you don't have to believe me, but there are plenty of very famous mixing engineers, producers who have made it very big time with only in-the-box gear. I've personally done so many A/B tests between these vintage emulations and just stock tools or other tools that I like the workflow of better. And although I understand that this is not a main factor that you should be thinking about, I still encourage you to do some A/B tests between some of these very famous emulations and your stock tools and decide for yourself. Just keep in mind that a lot of these plugins are using things such as saturation, so incorporate those into your A/B tests. Which brings me to the other side of things. So in the digital world, we have the possibility of making everything very easy, even when sacrificing quality. Up until today, I still have not found a single one-knob tool that is useful. The only thing that I can imagine it being useful is for quick and dirty, let's say a gate or a de-esser, very basic tools that you already have the stock plugins for. Obviously, these are gimmicks and should not be used, but they're very marketable for newer producers. These companies clearly understand that they're taking advantage of someone who knows a little bit less about producing, mixing, mastering, whatever, which is a perfect transition to our final topic, and that is YouTube creators. Now, if you're just beginning, it's very difficult to determine who actually knows what they're talking about, who just wants your money, and without going into every single channel and telling you whether it's good or not, I'll probably make another video about that entirely. But there's some red flags that you can follow. If a content creator is not disclosing their ads and just leaving affiliate links for those products in their description, that is not enough. When these creators are being contacted by plugin companies, they're often also being provided a script. This is not always the case, however, true opinions and ideas about the plugin are also being filtered out by the company themselves and the creator for wanting to be paid out. When a creator truly believes in a product, it's absolutely fine to be sponsored by them, even if it's just experimental. And when a content creator is trying to hide the fact that they're sponsored, it shows that they're maybe not proud of the product that they're advertising. I would like to challenge all of you to take a look at your plugin folders and really determine what you need or don't need. In my opinion, you need a couple of synths, a sampler, and oftentimes a sampler can be debated because a lot of people just work straight on the grid, one EQ, one compressor, a couple distortion units for different tones, one limiter, one clipper, a couple stereo effects such as for the Haas effect or just general stereo widening, one delay, a couple reverbs because I still haven't found one reverb that just really does it all, and a bunch of modulation effects to really mangle audio. The rest is up to you to make good music with. To finalize this video, I'm going to go over some very popular questions, or maybe questions that at least beginners have in their head. Starting with, does your DAW matter? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Depending on your workflow and the tasks that you're going to be doing, one will be worse or better. But they do absolutely all sound the exact same. For general producing of something like electronic music, this encompasses trap music, house, EDM, I would recommend Ableton. I recommend Ableton over FL because the outside of the box workflow that FL gives just doesn't translate very well to other DAWs. So if you are an FL veteran, you can easily watch a Ableton video and apply the same technique or a tip that you got with very little difficulty. If, however, you are new, you will absolutely struggle in some aspects if you're using FL. FL just simply has provided a different workflow that you have to commit to. I do want to recommend Reaper after using it for so long. It is such an amazing DAW, but the starter experience is even worse than FL. Everything is possible in Reaper, but the user experience just outside the box is horrendous. I will make probably another video about this in the future, but the developers are pretty keen on keeping it as it is, which is fine. It helps a lot of people. It suits their workflow. It's just not a DAW that I can really recommend for beginners or just people that just want to produce music. Next up would be synths. As for synths, there's a fairly large list, but I would recommend personally either Serum, Pigments, or Vital. If you have only a couple synths, at least one of these should be your go-to synth. Does your stock EQ do the job? Absolutely yes. You don't need anything other than your stock EQ. I personally do have the Pro Q from FabFilter, but it's basically to reduce all of the other plugins in my folder. So it can do dynamic EQ, stuff like this that is a bit more advanced. And Pro Q is basically just like your stock EQ with additional features, but your stock EQ is absolutely enough for general sculpting and getting the tone of your track right. Is your stock compressor enough? Absolutely yes. There's no reason to go aftermarket compressors. Not only is it so saturated, but the difference between each compressor is so little. If you take out the factor of like saturation or distortion in general, it's not worth it. Use your stock compressor. Should you get more distortion options than what's included in your DAW? I would say absolutely yes. This is one of the things that I think you should really splurge on if you're going to buy plugins. It should be distortion plugins. Things that offer you an easy way to give a different tone to a sound that you have, and these stock options are normally pretty limited. Does your stock limiter do the job? Kind of. So I would say limiters for most stock options in DAWs are pretty good for individual tracks, but on your master, you would want more transparency normally. Depends on what you want, but I would say an aftermarket limiter, such as from FabFilter, would be worth it later down the road when you're more experienced. Does your stock reverb do the job? Often not. So stock reverbs often are not either feature rich or sound very good. So that's why you go to these companies like, for example, Valhalla, who specify in reverbs to give you a really good reverb sound. On a side note, a lot of your money, in my opinion, should go into plugins that really mangle audio and make a sound that you may have truly unique. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. I hope it helped. You can like, subscribe if you want. But yeah, I'll see you next time.